Okay. Hi, Bjorn. How are you? First as usual, or well, maybe not usual. First as many times before, maybe. You're building a castle in Minecraft. I think my 8-year-old's doing the same thing right now. So, rock on. 6, my bad. Hello. Hello, hello. Hi, Harold. How are you? Uros. All right, guys, I'm going to give it a few minutes. I'm going to give it like 2-3 minutes, and then we'll get started. Let everybody roll in. As usual, if you have a question, you can start popping them in there into the chat box. Bjorn. New on funding. I'll get to that, guys. I'll get to that. Margin posting, rent movie network. I'll get to that. I'll get to that as well. Margin posting will be after Tram. So all focus is on Tram right now to get that released on schedule, as well as the IEO preparation on the CoinMetro Direct platform. Yeah, TRAM stands for trade mirroring or trade mirror. Basically, a manager creates a portfolio and you're able to mirror that portfolio onto your own account, basically, and then exit and enter at will. And the manager is only paid based on performance, so on a high watermark principle. So only on new performance that goes above previous highs is the manager paid or remunerated. Hey, Uros. We actually have 2 funds, basically crypto algorithmic funds that are looking to launch on the Tram platform once it's available. So those would probably be the first few algorithms that are presented. Each company has more than one algorithm. They may not, what we'll probably do a soft launch where we won't allow investors to come in yet, but we will allow the algorithms to trade for a specific amount of time that people can get used to the platform. We'll maybe even offer it on a demo version. People can see how it works. We let those algorithms make a little bit of profit, make a little bit of money, and then we open it up to the public. Burn rate for XCM. Burn rate is going to depend on several factors. The formula we can't release to the public, basically because if we release the formula, people would be able to speculate on the exact amount being burned and taking out of circulation. But the formula will vary, and we will burn based on that formula, which can go anywhere from a low percentage up to a very high percentage, around 50% of fees earned. Can we create and host algo trading scripts on the exchange? Creating them on the exchange won't be available initially. That's something that those systems, and I've seen them on FX brokers, I've seen them in a few places, they're rather gimmicky. If you know, a guy that, first of all, you need a system that actually makes money, so you should probably be a trader to make a system, and then you need to program it, and the person who should program a system is a programmer, not just by button clicking. At least I haven't seen one that's comprehensive enough to actually do something that makes sense. But you will be able to run them. That's for sure. API is going to come out right after Tram, seeing as many of the companies and algos that'll be trading. Well, obviously an algo, it needs an API. If you're a click trader, a manual trader, APIs aren't that important. But if you're an algorithm, you absolutely need an API. The ETA on the burn rate, that's been discussed a lot of times. It's going to happen after Tram as well, an API release. It's currently being built, not built, but it's currently being implemented into the sandbox, and it'll be launched right after Tram as well. All right, I'm going to jump into our show, guys. Let's get started, and then we'll jump back into the Q&A once we make it here, probably in the next 12 minutes or so. Sure. Well, those are two different types of APIs. There's an API already that can give you access to pricing, which you can create alerts on. We're talking about trading APIs. There's quote APIs, and then there's execution or trade APIs. Two different things. Okay, I'm going to jump into the show, and then I'll get back to you guys' questions. Okay. So for those of you who have never joined us before, I'm Kevin Murcko, CEO here at CoinMetro. We have a bit of a schedule we like to keep on these Ask Me Anything shows this week in crypto. The agenda works like this. I cover 10 pieces of market news that were curated by our elite Telegram group over the last week. I basically give a 1-minute response, or I try to keep it to 1 minute opinion on each piece of news and how it may or may not relate to what we're doing. And then we do a quick Kevin Explains Crypto, which is I usually get a phrase or a word that's crypto related, and I explain what it means. Simple as that. Then we do get back to this live Q&A here on YouTube. And if time permits, and if there's actual questions, and this week looks like we have about 9 or 10 questions from Reddit that were also submitted over last week, I get to those as well. So takes about 10 minutes to get through market news, minute or so to get through Kevin Explains Crypto, and then we're jumping back into the AMA. So if you have a question, you don't feel like sitting around and waiting, and you can care less about news, I'll see you in 10 to 12 minutes. So here we go, guys. Number 1 on the list of 10 for our news, Binance reveals Venus aims to dominate national stablecoins. So again, this is obviously on the coattails of Libra. Libra is not a stablecoin. It is a hedge fund modeled like a central bank. That's it. Lots of there are private central banks. So let's not go down that road. But it's basically a tokenized, privatized national bank. That's basically what they're doing, and with the hedge fund element. So it's not a stable coin, but obviously they're going down on those coattails. Look, stable coins have specific use cases for settlement and clearing, and there will be more and more stable coins. Eventually, there probably will be a standard. They will not be coins created by Binance. Binance wants to go down that road and create stable coins for every single major currency. They're obviously able to do so. It's not that difficult. But there will be much more innovative solutions on the market as that stablecoin market starts to evolve and actually apply to specific use cases like clearing and settlement. So whatever, I think they're just trying to pick up a little bit of slack off of the Facebook announcements, and they're going to show Facebook that, look, we can do it, because obviously they're not going to model it like Facebook, which is essentially, like I said, a hedge fund that basically allows them to input governance into fiat based through a tokenization model that they can earn money on the interest of the underlying fiat. That's something that Binance isn't going to do. So they will get it done quicker than Facebook, and they're just trying to get a little PR out of that. Number 2 on the list of 10, Vitalik talks scalability. Ethereum blockchain is almost full. So yeah, I mentioned a million times before that I like Vitalik, smart guy, obviously. Definitely way smarter than me in many different things. But one thing that he needs to take some tips on is he needs to hire a PR guy or girl and get that person on the payroll ASAP, because he comes out and says the most ridiculous things. Look, if I'm an Ethereum token holder right now, I'm pissed. It's ridiculous to come out and say that. That doesn't necessarily mean it's not true. It's true. There's definitely better ways to say it and to explain it. I think he's come out and said they should use Bitcoin Cash blockchain for scalability in the short term and all kinds of other things. Anyway, the point is that obviously the scalability is still an issue. They haven't been able to solve it, and they're trying to find ways for a band-aid solution until the point that they may be able to solve it with some side chain or some other iteration of Ethereum, maybe Ethereum 2.0 that's supposed to be coming out as well. So not solved yet, still working on it. I like that he's open. It's good. It's good to see people that are open, but he really needs to take some classes on how to release information, I think, because what he says can affect the market. And that's it. I'm sure he's a big bag holder himself. So number 3 on a list of 10, Luxembourg financial firm Black Mantra Capital receives BaFin license to start offering STOs. I love these news stories because I did a brief check, and I usually never check these things, but I checked to see if they actually say what kind of license they received. They don't. It says under MiFID II framework. And but there was one key aspect that I read in a press release that basically says that the tokens were basically giving rights to the underlying asset. So we've seen this a million times, guys. This is a lazy solution. It is a depository receipt. These aren't natively tokenized assets. This is taking a stock or a share, whether it be something like almost like a Reg A offering, a private offering, whatever, taking that paper-based share. By the way, in Germany, under BaFin, all securities need to have a paper transaction. So it boggles my mind a bit why a lot of these companies go to Germany first. Germany obviously has a reputation. BaFin has a reputation, but the regulation sucks. And it's one of the worst and most archaic pieces of regulation around capital markets in Europe. And it's definitely the worst place to start in terms of tokenization. It's the best place to start in terms of trying to make a change. It is the worst place to get licensed. So I don't get it. It's still a lazy solution with a license. Doesn't solve cross-border, doesn't solve liquidity, doesn't solve any of the issues that tokenization can solve. It's simply taking the problems that we already have and putting them on a blockchain. So as I like to say on most Fridays, because there's at least one story that always falls under this moniker, WFC, who fucking cares? Number 4 on a list of 10, over 200 cryptocurrency exchanges in South Korea at risk of bankruptcy. They claim low transaction volume and inability to open real name virtual accounts as major causes. So over 200 cryptocurrency exchanges, and I see in my notes that's 97% of them. So that means what? There's 206. Shit, that's funny. Okay, so basically all the exchanges in South Korea have no real volume. But I bet you if you go on CoinMarketCap right now and look under volumes for South Korean-based exchanges, I bet they're huge. So anyway, no volumes in South Korea, and they need to go into bankruptcy. Well, I would say, look, a lot of these guys basically opened their business because they saw, Mt. Gox, they saw Binance making a ton of money, and they figured, easy money. And then everybody was trying to do the same thing. Nobody innovated. Nobody really did anything, and nobody really planned for the worst. And here we are, right? So trust me, running a company on fumes is not easy, and especially when you want to remain public and try to be honest about what you're doing. So I would say this is probably the case around the world, guys, and it's not much different. 3% of businesses succeeding, that's on a little bit on the low side. But when you talk about startups in any industry, most startups fail. The super vast majority of startups fail. When you talk about the finance industry, I would say that 97% is probably close. Finance is not easy, guys. Dealing with other people's money, regulations, all the red tape that goes along with it, having to deal with clients. When you deal with a client when they spent their money with you and they're pissed is one thing. When you're dealing with a client that gave their money to you and lost it and is pissed, completely different story. It's a hard business to run. So anyway, number 5 on a list of 10, New York Supreme Court denies Bitfinex's lack of jurisdiction claim. Yeah, that was a no-brainer. The U.S. has jurisdiction anywhere it wants to have jurisdiction, because as long as they can show that there's a possibility that there was a U.S. person involved in a regulated activity where there was no license held, U.S. has jurisdiction. So that claim was going to get thrown out anyway, and it did. So moving on, Bitfinex, Tether, all these guys, it's going to be a long couple of years for them, and it will take some time for these cases to go through. Even if they're actioned upon, it will take time for any action to actually happen. There will be appeals. There will be people getting maybe arrested. There will be people probably there will be all types of things that are going to happen. It's very hard to stop a protocol, so Tether will probably never go to zero, but I think there's going to be some major waves out of this, but it's going to take time. Number 6 on our list of 10, Amazon of Japan launches crypto exchange service. So Rakuten. So yeah, look, I said this a million times as well, right? All these guys, all these Fortune 100 companies around the world are going to tokenize themselves, whether it's Facebook, whether it's Google, whether it's Amazon, whether it's the Japanese Amazon, whatever it is, Alibaba, blah, 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 but they're all going to find ways to tokenize their ecosystems. And when they do that, most of these companies already have licensing in place, like e-money licensing, remittance licensing, even when they're not a financial company. Why? Well, for instance, Volkswagen. Volkswagen has e-money licensing around the world, an equivalent of Europe and elsewhere. Why do they do that? They do have financial service product because they obviously give loans for their cars, but they do it because they need to move money cross-border all the time to pay their employees and their suppliers. And it simply makes it easier for them and cuts down costs. So most of these large Fortune 100s already have financial licenses. So once they start tokenizing things, why wouldn't they have their own exchange? That doesn't mean they're opening an exchange to compete necessarily with other brokers, dealers, and exchanges. They're simply doing it as a value-added service to their clients so they can push adoption of their own tokenized assets. But it's going to happen. Everybody and their grandmother is going to have an exchange when it comes to these Fortune 100s. But the scope will be limited, which will still leave the door open for well-run third-party brokers and dealers that deal in digital assets. Just like the door has always been open for well-run third-party services that deal in stocks, bonds, FX, etc. Number 7 on a list of 10, Cryptopia liquidator updates stakeholders. Return of funds may take long. Yeah, no shit. When funds get locked up, even when they're available, you're talking 3 to 5 years at a minimum to get them back. And you won't get 100% back, almost never. So, strap yourselves in, guys. This is, again, people think this demonizes regulation but this is exactly why regulation is needed. Regulation can be cumbersome. It can be shitty. It can put a lot of roadblocks between, entrepreneurial spirit. But what it also does is filter out a lot of the shit. And if regulation had been in place, Cryptopia probably never would have even been opened, never mind been hacked and went out of business. It probably never would have existed. So, you got to jump on the bandwagon at some point. When I was 20, I didn't give a shit about the establishment either, right? Everybody thinks they can do things better when they're younger. As you get older, though, you realize that even though nothing is a perfect system, and we will never have a perfect system. You can envision any type of future-proof, trustless system in your head. That sounds awesome. I could write a 9-page paper about a trustless system and call myself, Wan Ching Chong or whatever, and publish it out there, right? Maybe in 10 years it actually comes to fruition. But at the end of the day, guess what, guys? There's no such thing as a perfect system. So no matter what we create, it's always going to be flawed because humans are flawed. But without regulation and no shit filters, this is what happens. Number 8, Tether are set to launch a Chinese stablecoin. I mean, they like printing money out of thin air. Printing a bit of Chinese money out of thin air sounds like a good idea to me. Why not? Number 10 on a list of 10, Gemini heads down under with crypto exchange launch in Australia. I'm not sure what to comment on. So Gemini, regulated exchange, bit license in the U.S., famous Winklevoss or brothers, Facebook dudes. So now they're in Australia. Look, I've said this a million times too. I don't like saying I told you so, right? But I'm going to say it today because it's Friday, right? So I told you guys so. What happens with volume in crypto is the same thing that happened with FX volume. All volume is going to flow to your major volume hubs when it comes to financial transactions in the world, mainly currency transactions, because most people, for the most part, probably falsely believe that crypto is a currency. So it's going to flow in the same direction. And where are the major hubs for currency transactions in the world? New York, London, Sydney, Tokyo. That's it. Brazil. That's it, guys. Hong Kong, some to a certain extent, but Tokyo dwarfs Hong Kong in terms of, I think there's about roughly $1 trillion a day worth of currency transactions on an institutional and retail scale out of Japan. That's 1/5, 1/6 of all transactions. So yeah, guys, they're just playing the smart regulation game. Plus the Austrac regulation, which we also have a registration for, by the way, for remittance and currency virtual currency exchange, is relatively easy to get. Just takes a bit of time. So they're playing a bit of their easy regulation game and establishing points in the world where liquidity will probably flow, and where right now it's very easy to get in, because as Australia did with FX initially on the FX side, it was 50,000 minimum capital to get an FX license to be able to trade FX. The requirements were almost none. There was almost no fit and proper. Now it's 1 million. There's definitely fit and proper, but if you got your foot in the door originally, you still have your foot in the door. So good play on Gemini's part. Same play we took. They did it after us, by the way. Not saying they did it because of us, but just want to throw that out there. Okay, let's get into the live Q&A. Let's see what we got up here. ATM, okay. PayPal is important. Okay, so what about an IEO announcement? Yeah, so the landing page from Parsec's side is pretty much done, though we're going through and editing some of the content, at least the content that pertains to us, not to them. I think that basically Monday is going to be the day, guys. So we may do some type of announcement a bit later today. We may. But I think the bulk of the announcements coming on Monday. And this way we can streamline everything. PR releases and everything will be streamlined. What can we expect to roll out in September? Well, TRAM, API, most likely. Liquidity for tokens that we've listed and those that are coming. What else we got on the roadmap? The XCM utility integration into the platform as well. And lots of different fixes. We're also working on some new designs for what will become the Express platform, as well as the Pro platform, which is a merging of margin and trade. Express will be the new intermediate with a complete rework. All those aren't going to come out in September, but work will start. We may see that Pro platform towards the end of September. It's possible. Talk about big companies opening exchanges exclusively for their specific products. Would you try to get some of these companies to partner up with CM? Can only imagine what it would mean. Yeah, why not? I mean, they're going to need technology. These big companies, even though they have the money, they don't necessarily create. Once they've created, now Google obviously created search algorithms, right? But now a lot of the technology Google uses is not necessarily Google technology. They buy it and they take it over. And you look at some of the properties from Facebook, same thing, Instagram, WhatsApp, all these things. They didn't create that product. They just bought it. So these companies will look to buy technology. They will look to partner with other entities. So yes, of course, we would look to do partnerships and business agreements and things with different companies that have their own, especially those that aren't yet Fortune 100, but are big enough to make a big difference for us and maybe too small for other people really to be looking at them, right? So your bigger entities may overlook these companies, where for us it would be a much easier sale. So yes, of course. New on funding. So still in talks with our guys from Brazil. We'll actually have a call at some point today with another interested party inside their group. And I was supposed to be in Berlin for a Web3 Summit, and unfortunately I missed it. But somebody, one of our colleagues was there. So there's a few meetings, phone calls that are set up for next week as well on funding. And then from the UK, I think probably in the next 2 weeks, I will have the next meeting in the UK. So we'll see how that goes. But Brazil is still moving along. Look, these things sometimes take a bit longer they always take a bit longer than you expect. That's just the way things work. So last conversation was basically midweek, and it was 7 to 10 days to get to basically finalize everything. At least that was the estimate from Brazil's side. So that was roughly two days ago. So we're talking roughly a week from now. They're hoping to have everything settled. Debit card coming along. I'm actually still waiting on the layouts from the card printer so that we can actually adapt designs to those. As far as getting the entire project pushed through on the supplier side, haven't actually had that conversation. We've had lots of conversations between last AMA and now, but that's one of the conversations I haven't gotten to yet. So I will try to have that conversation over the weekends. We don't have a scheduled call, but I'll try to reach out. If not early next week, just tag me on Telegram at some point, and I'll come back and give you an update on that. The bulk of the marketing is definitely done by the issuer. So we help where we can. We definitely help when it comes to adapting information, our own internal marketing, etc. We help where we can as far as external marketing. Um, Part of the way we do this is that we do take a certain fee where part of that fee is spent on marketing. So there will be a bit done externally from our side as well, but the bulk of it is on the side of the issuer. Next three, actually, I think there's 4 or 5 tokens that we submitted. No news. We just tried to reach out to LHV today, but our main contact is on vacation, and the other contact I think was in meetings, so we're waiting to hear back. But we've so no news. I'm assuming that it wasn't brought up yesterday inside their weekly risk meeting. Probably won't be till next week. But we are waiting, I think, on 5 submissions. Parsec being one of those. How's the hunt for head of marketing going? Hunt's still on. I know we've gotten a lot of resumes. Some of them, though, just kind of instantly were chucked into the digital recycling bin. Others are going through a process. So it's still ongoing. We've had some good candidates, that's for sure, but we really want to make sure we pick the absolute best we can for the position. We've seen some great people with some great skills that would definitely fit, but we want to make sure we get that perfect fit. So that can take a bit of time. And unfortunately, it's a risk as well, because some of your candidates that you may come back and give an offer to later maybe already get offers from elsewhere. But it's too important for us at this stage, because we're moving from this kind of branding style of marketing into this sales of marketing, which is a completely different animal and definitely needs a lot more focused attention. Did I ever have any media training? Can you define media training? Is that like me sitting in front of a mirror and talking to myself, or what is media training? By the way, I've never done that. So just in case anybody's never watched one of these and thinks I'm crazy, I've never sat in front of the mirror and talked to myself. So I'm going to jump into Reddit while we're waiting for some more questions to roll in here. So we have one from Nixing. Great show and volume on Tuesday, 1 million XCM market sell and immediate recovery. I was wondering if you had any insights onto what extent XCM whales have emerged besides team investors and Remit. Well, we've seen actually people come in and deposit tokens that didn't buy them on CoinMetro. So there's definitely some trading happening outside the platform. When it comes to whales, there's been full disclosure here, guys. There's been one minority shareholder I know that cashed out some XCM. This is a minority shareholder that holds less than 1% of the company. That was one of the initial shareholders almost 5 years ago when CoinMetro wasn't even CoinMetro. Aside from that, though, there's really been no sales from shareholders or team members. When it comes to or shareholders, team members, or employees for that matter. When it comes to whales, we definitely, for the most part, know who they are, because obviously we know who bought what in the token sale. But I think there's a few individuals that basically trade in between Bitcoin and XCM and try to catch windfalls on both sides. So I think that's essentially most of the larger trading that you see. Okay, so coming back on this media training, similar to what you said about Vitalik getting information out, you have ever training to present yourself in front of a camera? Training, no. Experience, yeah. Experience in front of, I've had a lot of experience over the last 2 years of having to deal with, thousands of people on Telegram and then running these things every week and trying to be as open as possible, and at the same time presenting information that didn't sound like, the game was over. But when you talk about training on how to talk to people, like in business settings, experience, yes. I've had a million different things happen to me in my career when it comes to negotiations, when it comes to dealing across a table, when it comes to dealing, whether it's selling a business, buying a business, internal discussions, having to deal with shareholders or investors. I've dealt with that a lot. So in terms of formal training, I've definitely, I guess, had an informal training where I've dealt with PR companies, and a PR company will say, look, you don't want to release this, or look, you don't want to say this like that, or that thing that you mentioned yesterday in the meeting, you should rephrase it like this. So yes, I still make mistakes. Everybody makes mistakes, right? That's for sure. And to be honest, on the Vitalik point, he's definitely gotten better. Like, for instance, CZ from Binance used to be the biggest shit show in the world anytime he spoke publicly. He's a lot better than he used to be. Still could probably use some pointers, but he's getting better, right? So he's learning from his mistakes. And Vitalik, same thing, used to be much worse, and definitely learning from his mistakes. So maybe there is some coaching going on there. I don't know. But generally speaking, it's the bigger your company is, the more important it is to have someone in PR. Number two, nixing as well. So Parsec IEO is delayed. Which project is next and when? The IEO itself isn't delayed. The announcement is delayed. And that's only because we're just getting everything formatted. You mentioned several projects being lined up and mostly IEOs. Can you expect number two by mid-September? Again, not delayed. So Parsec will be the first project on our CoinMetro Direct platform. Number two and number three and number four we're debating as to launch sequence. So I don't know yet who's going to be number two, but it wouldn't be in September. It would probably be in October, towards the end of October, possibly into November. It depends. Doing one a month is not like set in stone. It just shouldn't be less than once a month. Basically, that's the idea. What is your plan to get more users? Well, marketing. But for that, we need a budget. So, and before, even to be honest, guys, there's different ways to get to success, right? Sometimes you just have really good timing, right? Let's look at Binance. Let's be honest about Binance, right? Binance had great timing. They launched a shitty platform with shitty UI and UX, but they listed hundreds of assets. That's why they made money. And that's why they continue now to reign as the supposed high volume holders in crypto. For the amount of assets, timing, and then the amount of assets they listed. Has nothing to do with great customer service, a great company, a flawless UI, flawless trading, none of that. It absolutely has to do with those two things. Timing, which they obviously didn't plan. They just got lucky, which is what happens. Anybody that says they planned perfect timing is a liar, right? Perfect timing happens mostly because of luck. So they got perfect timing on, not perfect, but very good timing. And they listed a lot of assets. Now you can look at other companies that went different routes. And I'm not just talking about crypto, but there's always different ways to get to success. Once there's someone out there that already has, let's say, the lion's share of a business, you need a niche. You need to be able to get in with a niche. You need to build on that niche. The niche for us is a more complete offering. And that complete offering takes time to develop. And if we start to really look for users and we compete on an exchange level with Binance, we lose. Doesn't matter if we're cheaper. Doesn't matter if our customer support speaks English and can actually answer a question. It doesn't matter if we're fully compliant. None of that matters. What matters is that they already have the lion's share, and they have a lot of cheerleaders. No matter what we do, those cheerleaders will drown out our client base, for sure. So how do you do it? Well, it takes time. You build something that they don't have, and then you basically cut them out from the ground up. You pull their feet from under them, and then you basically climb on top of them. That's how it works. That's how it works in business. That's how it works here. So we need to do marketing. We need a budget for marketing, and we need a solid, rock solid list of services that we can offer to clients when they come in the door. And that's how we make sales funnels. And to make sales funnels and drive traffic to those sales funnels, you need money. To get money, you need funding. To get funding, you need a stable base in your business, partially regulatory and partially technology, to show those investors that they're getting in with the right people. All that takes time. We've been building on that now for a year and a half. And we're getting to the point where we're about to cross over that, not yet, okay, now. And that's what we're doing. When money comes in, we start to market sales, and we market sales around things that no one else offers. Paying makers not only on derivatives, but also on actual physically delivered crypto. We're talking about, customer service. We're talking about platforms that kind of have something for everybody. We're talking about investment platforms. We're talking about margin trading. Yes, of course. We're talking about margin posting. We're talking about all these different features all combined into one platform. Hey, Kevin, this is from Maximilian. Which crypto events do you find the best? I think you asked this last time. For me personally, these events are about learning more about technology, maybe even getting to know some people. Well, Web3 Summit was supposedly quite nice. I just missed that one. Definitely this Ethereum-related conference. What is it called? DevCon? DevCon's not the Ethereum one. But anyway, DevCon's a good one. As far as just the amount of people and the different variety of fintechs. Slush is a good one at the end of the year in Helsinki. Not specifically crypto related, but still a good one. When you talk about, I think there's one, what the hell is it called? I got to think. Anyway, I'll come back to this. But Web3 Summit was definitely good. There's another Web Summit, which is obviously a big one, big tech conference. Specific crypto ones are hard, man, to pinpoint, because sometimes you go to one event and it's okay, and the next event they hell sucks. Or sometimes they suck for a long time, then there's one good one. It all depends about the people that attend. It all depends. You always look at who's attending. And if there's something there that interests you, then it's good for you. That's it. CZ getting better. Missed that tweet this week about his conversation with a 14-year-old who only values stuff in BNB. Yeah, I said he's getting better. I didn't say he's young. I didn't say he's actually worthwhile yet. He's just getting better. But yeah, I did see that tweet. Whatever. I mean, doesn't, I mean, the funny thing is, he doesn't really need to do it, right? Or maybe he, it's either that he doesn't need to do it and he does it and who knows why, or he actually needs to do it. So that might bring a few questions in people's minds. I don't know. Just print your own money. Yep, Bjorn, that's definitely what crypto's been doing since its inception, though at some point that's going to stop. That's for sure. Yeah, I missed somebody about a backend developer. Let's see. I didn't see that one. I'm scrolling up. I actually don't even see it. So can somebody repost it? Because I don't even see it. How are things progressing with Montenegro? So we're waiting on the final version of the English version of the framework. We were supposed to get that today. Maybe we don't. Maybe it comes in next week. Once we do that, we kind of give our final yes, go ahead. Then we're going to be presented with the application guidelines, which we've already seen, but just the finalized version. And then we'll submit the application for CoinMetro. So I think it's possible before the end of the month, we start the application process. If not, first 2 weeks of September, we should be able to knock it out. Parsec was at Web3. Yep, Parsec was there. Anatoly there. CTO was there. Yeah, definitely. That's one reason why I was going to attend. I just got back from another trip on Monday, and then unfortunately, I wasn't able to fly back out. How do you plan to attract liquidity providers? Well, we pay them. There you go. Well, we pay them. One, we have a liquidity provider already. We've already negotiated a deal. They're coming on. These good group of guys. One of the only liquidity providers I've ever talked to that after I hung up the phone, I didn't immediately think they were either idiots, morons, or fraudsters. That's painful to say, guys, because I mean, I've talked to 1 million liquidity providers in all types of markets, and I'll tell you that liquidity providers in FX are salesmen, 100%. Most of them use the same technology. There's nothing really exciting about it. Most of them don't even understand the world of market making, but they have algorithms that are mature enough to be able to do it. And guess what? Doesn't really matter if they don't know what they're doing, because the technology pretty much does all the heavy lifting. When it comes to crypto, I've talked to probably 40 liquidity providers. Out of those, I think 36, let's say, conservatively speaking, had no idea what market making is. None. They're either connecting a bot to another exchange, pulling in the order book, splicing it into your exchange, and then simply arbitraging between the two. That's not market making. That's called straight through processing, and it's what every single basically aggregator does around the world in any market. It's not a market making service. When I'm looking for market making, I want someone to actually make a market on my exchange. Whether they offset their risk somewhere else afterward, great. But I don't want to have to put up collateral at 10 different places or 2 different brokers, especially when they're unregulated. I could just do that myself. Or you have the guys that simply wash trade. Or you have the guys that say they have experience and they don't, because they worked in the mailroom at some liquidity provider or NASDAQ or something like that. And now they tout that on their resume. So these guys are actually, I would say, one of the best I've ever talked to in terms of knowing the market, actually doing market making. They're not looking to move the market in any one direction. They're simply there. If there's a buyer, they're a seller. If there's a seller, they're a buyer. That's it. That's how market making works. It's not meant to push flow omnidirectionally to increase the price of something, to specifically decrease the price of something. They're simply there to provide a market. So it's not hard to attract liquidity providers. It's hard to find liquidity providers that actually know what they're doing. How do you grade your execution so far on major initiatives? At the end of the day, execution would be very key to success. Execution is always the only key to success, because you can talk about team, and obviously if you have a good team and there's no execution, your business dies. If you have a shit team and you're executing all over the place, even though you're executing shit, you may actually succeed. So it's all about execution. But when you're in a competitive market and you're doing it on a budget that's much less than your competitors, you need to be, let's say, flexible, agile, and you need to find a niche. So if I grade our execution in terms of when we first launched, it fucking sucked. And the reason why it fucking sucked is not because obviously we had some money when we first launched, or not launched, but when we first kind of after the token sale, but we were putting together a team from scratch. And you never know how a team, no matter, even if everybody individually is awesome, sometimes when they're put together, they suck. And we had, communication issues. We had internal communications issues, external communication issues, people getting siloed, people trying to work on certain projects, trying to get all these people together and move fast. And we made mistakes, that's for sure. Now, if I compare that to where we are now, it's night and day. I would say execution right now, we're at a solid B. We could be at an A. We'll get there. We'll get to that A+ level. I think we're at a B. We're obviously, soon Metro and all those good memes and everything. It's true, but you know what? At the same time, I've never roadmap for some reason. Whoever did the first, Mastercoin ICO, whatever it was, I think Brock Pierce, that decided to put a roadmap up, basically created this ideal and this idea that when you invest in a company, they set up some type of roadmap in the future with their crystal ball, and they're going to hit every single deadline. And that shit just doesn't happen in the real world. So, you never know what's going to happen. You have no idea what's going to happen, especially in a regulated marketplace. So I think though, yeah, execution, I would say, is at a B now. It needs to be better, and it will get better, but it's way better than it was. And we're climbing uphill, but we're getting pretty skilled at climbing uphill, guys. And when it comes to the point where we can get to the top of the hill and just sit and slide down, we're going to slide pretty fucking. I mean, we're going to pick up speed fast. That kind of sounded wrong because we're going to go downhill. But what I meant to say was that we're going to pick up speed. That it's going to get a lot easier, right? So we're very good at climbing up hills now, guys. We've been doing this for the past year, and I think we're getting pretty good at it. And the team, while it's getting a bit condensed, is definitely really starting to know how to work together and get things done. How about getting a back-end developer? Yep. Look, we're looking for all different. Look, we obviously have a budget we have to work in, right, guys? Unless somebody wants to fund the back-end developer. So there's only specific things. Look, what do we need right now specifically? Do we need another back-end developer that's going to be trained, that's going to take them probably 4 to 6 weeks to understand the architecture, another 4 to 6 weeks to make any type of impact? Maybe in 2 or 3 months, they can actually make an impact. Or we find out that they weren't the right choice. We have to fire them, and it takes another 2 or 3 months. Do we have that luxury? Or is the better luxury of getting a marketer on board, spending that money on marketing right now, and getting to the point where we have a solid way forward on sales and conversions? That's the question. My answer would be the latter at this point. Did you do this week's Kevin Explains Crypto, or did I zone out? No, I didn't actually. I'll get to it right at the end then. Thanks for bringing that up. How do proper market makers make money then? It depends on how you're making the markets. So proper market makers know how to balance a book. They will offset risk at some point. That doesn't mean they offset risk on every single trade. Because if it's just one bot trading at an exchange, another bot trading at my exchange, and then I'm simply arbing between the two, I do that myself. Why do I pay somebody to do that? You know how simple that bot is? All that bot is doing is pulling in levels of depth, pasting them over onto the other exchange, taking the order, submitting the order, waiting for a confirmation on the other exchange, and then confirming it on our side. You know how long it would take our boy Salvatore to knock up those 2 robots? 45 minutes. So why am I going to pay somebody to do that? I'll just take the risk myself, open up the accounts myself, and do it myself. That's not market making. Market making is when there's actually a market made. Now, how do they make money? Well, they balance their own books. That means they offset risk at some point. That means they may have internal risk policies on their side that they'll take up to $200K worth of risk on Bitcoin, $100K on Ethereum, $50K on altcoins, whatever. And they basically, they find buyers and sellers. They try to, they while they're maintaining the market, when they see that they have too much risk on one side, they basically offset that risk or hedge that risk at another provider. And when the hedge, if the hedge is making money, they may take profits off the hedge if they believe the market is going to turn. If the market does, when the market does turn, they knock the hedge out and they resell back to the market a few days, minutes, hours later, whatever, depends on the volatility, for a profit. That's market making. How is the progress of the new currencies? So I don't really have any update on that, guys, because unfortunately I haven't been focused on that this week. Been focused on a few other things. There's definitely progress being made. APIs. I was supposed to actually get the API document yesterday from the provider. I didn't send it. I sent him actually 2 days ago, and I sent him an update yesterday, and he said I'd have it by the end of the day. Didn't get it, so I will be sending another update shortly after we get off this chat to get the API. Once we get the API, we'll have a look. We'll integrate on our side. We'll do some testing. I don't know the extent of the API. I don't know if the API is just for issuing IBANs or it's actually also for other specific aspects of the system. Also, like I said, right now, IBANs are delivered out of Luxembourg, and the cost is kind of high for transfers, 0.5% in, 0.1% out. Once those IBANs get transferred onto the platform in the UK, the cost gets down to a fixed cost, and it's much more inexpensive, especially for larger transfers. So I'm debating whether we should wait for that, and I'm waiting on an update. I'm told that's weeks away. I don't know how many weeks is weeks yet. But anyway, I'm waiting for the API documentation. Once we have that, we'll have a better idea. How do you make okay? Aren't they ongoing? Aren't they on the wrong side of the spread? I already explained the market making. So you can lose money in many aspects of market making, but if you're a good market maker, overall you make money. That's how it's done. It's all based on risk. Has the price discovery among exchanges gotten any better the last year? No. I think this question is also missed. Oh, was retracted. Okay. How many devs are working at CoinMetro? Let me see here. We have 5. Hopefully nobody heard that, but off screen, that was Maris in the background saying 5, so I didn't have to think. So thank you, Maris. 5. So what is the ratio of revenue to expenses? By the way, you deserve a slap on the back for all the things achieved so far. I appreciate that. I'm not the only, I mean, I thought you were going to say slap in the face, but thanks for slapping me on the back. But yeah, I'm not everybody, there's a lot of people here that deserve a slap on the back. It's not just me, right? Just because I'm sitting here in this chair doesn't mean that I'm doing more than everybody else. That just means I got here first. But we appreciate that. Thank you. So ratio of revenue to expenses. The ratio is way on the side of expense right now. So our burn rate is still about 100,000 a month. I haven't seen last month's numbers, but it's in the low percentage. It's either in single digits or very low double digits, depending on what we did on margin trading last month, which I haven't seen. And it's actually still something that we're working on in terms of giving quick access. After we have the numbers, but in terms of quick access on the admin side, I don't think it's ready yet. So there's not something that I can immediately look at. But that margin trading, the money on margin trading, which will be directly affected by TRAM, is definitely where we're going to start to see a pickup in revenues. That's for sure. Any plans on increasing the 1 to 3 margin trading along with, has SEM looked into moving stop losses? You mean like drag and drop stop losses on the chart? Is that what you mean? Or just editing? You can edit your stop loss. That's for sure. So you can move it. If you mean physically moving on the chart, drag and dropping it. I know we've looked at this. I think there might be something with TradeView that's making that difficult to implement. But I know I just read a couple of threads actually internally about us looking into that. But I don't remember the actual outcome. But I think I remember that TradingView made that not so optimal in terms of UI and UX. And 1 to 3 on margin trade. Yes, the plan is to raise it. There are right now in Europe. Now, again, there's always this thing where you get caught in this, I don't know, this like rock between a hard place type of thing where crypto isn't actually fully regulated in the EU. And other markets are, and other markets have other regulations they need to follow, like ESMA and things like this. Now, if we look at ESMA, you're limited to 1 to 25 leverage for retail traders on, let's say, FX, for example. So I don't think we'll ever go above 1 to 25. Main reason is that, yeah, right now maybe it's not enforced, but it definitely will be at some point. So I don't. There's enough volatility in this market, and there will be for the foreseeable future, that I don't think super high leverage is even needed, and it's not really a benefit for most people, and it's definitely not a benefit when you go in front of a regulator, because they're just looking at as you're just basically stealing money from people that don't know what they're doing. So I do think 1 to 5, maybe even 1 to 10 in the near term, medium term is possible. We still don't have enough data to really see where the risk lies on our side in terms of negative balances. We need to see more traders to get more data to be able to look at that. Once we have enough data, we can make a risk assessment and then decide whether we can start to move that. But that is the goal, to move it higher. What if you run out of money? If we run out of money, we close. But there's, we've run on this a million times. What does any company do when they run out of money? But what you have to understand is, look, I'll give you the FX Pig analogy on this one. FX Pig had, let's say, just like most startups, the first year or two, had many months where we didn't have money to pay bills. You know what we did? We cut back, we scaled back. No profit, no salaries to anyone. And that obviously it was a much smaller team, but anyway, we cut back and we moved forward and we got through it. That's it. So running out of money is one thing, right? But I'm going to repeat this again. It might sound cheesy or corny to everybody, but I don't give up. If the proverbial white towel is in the room, you will never see me throw it. And that can be a pro, that can be a good thing, and that can be a very bad thing, right? I don't have an addictive personality. I don't get addicted to things. I can pretty much do it. I've never had a moment where I thought, and I don't get addicted to not even like chocolate, caffeine. I don't drink coffee, and I've tried it. I don't have to run around and have like dark chocolate every day or I'm going to die. I don't get addicted to sugar. I'm just not an addictive person. But when it comes to business, I do not, and most, let's say, even when it comes to things in my life, I don't give up. Just don't give up, which means that if I have to, and I don't really have a salary now. I have the smallest salary I can give myself under stipulated law, so I can keep my visa, which is like 700 euros a month or something like that. So I'm obviously not in this for some big salary. I'm obviously not siphoning money from the company. I will be here regardless. I will be here, and I know there will other people on the team that will stay here and stick to it until we get back on our feet. So theoretically, yes, if a business runs out of money, closes. If CoinMetro ran into a situation where it didn't have enough to pay its burn rate, we just make it work. That's it. Implementation of copy paste on double click. Can that be done? Implementation of copy paste on double click. To move a stop loss? On the chart, you mean? Or just simply in the input? In the input box, yeah, probably. That could probably be implemented, yes. How do you feel about the 1 million XCM sell-off earlier this week? Do you feel the price held up well? Everybody seems to think so, but the price is over 20% less than the week before. I would say it held up quite well, yes. Did it held up as best as it could? No. But it shows that it's definitely a more mature book than it was in the beginning. That book is maturing at a pretty decent rate for the amount of volume that's pushed through it. So I would say it's definitely maturing. It's way better than it was. It's only going to get better. And it shows that there is buying interest, which is the most important aspect. Yeah, we didn't get back to the 4 cents or so where it was, but we will get back there, right? It shows that there's basically, this range of 3 to 4, which is definitely where most buying activity is happening. So that's a good price discovery mechanism right there, guys. That's telling us right now what the market views as a legitimate price for this asset. And I would say in the current market, it's not bad. And of course, it could be better, but I think it held up quite well. What is the potential of revenue for IEO compared to TRAM? Well, the IEO, we make a percentage of what the IEO brings in. So TRAM, I think, has way more potential over time than the CoinMetro Direct does. However, CoinMetro Direct brings exposure, brings new clients, which then may trade TRAM, ETCF, trade on the exchange, use margin, etc. So the indirect effect of the CoinMetro Direct platform can be much larger in scale. But when you compare direct income from CoinMetro Direct versus the TRAM will win. That's for sure. Has any other big old exchange reached out to you asking for advice regarding regulations? Yes. How big was the Brazilian investment again? Phase one, at least to CoinMetro, is 500,000. Phase two would be everything that we've been looking for. You talked about listing a tokenized real estate when you have the MTF license. Does that have anything to do with Hansa Coin? No, it doesn't. Come on, Kevin. 1 to 1,000 shitcoin margin. Yeah. Well, we will never do that. I can guarantee you. All right, we're getting close to the end here. I'm going to do Kevin Explains Crypto real quick, because if I don't, I'm going to get assassinated before I leave the office. So Kevin Explains Crypto. This week's term is DAO. It's DAO for those. So DAO means decentralized autonomous organization. So basically what that means in real talk is essentially, when you think of an organization, whether that be a corporate structure like CoinMetro, whether that be a foundation, whether that be a fund, there's usually, first, it usually gets registered at some registry somewhere, usually gets some type of certificate of incorporation or whatever when you register an organization. And then there's usually governance in that organization. There's usually board meetings, or there's meeting minutes that take place where decisions can be made. So what a decentralized autonomous organization is autonomous means it's automatic. Basically, it can happen without physical input. So it's basically an organization built inside a smart contract. So governance of that organization, from meetings, from making decisions, is controlled on a blockchain. And the information, instead of being in a paper registry, is registered in the blockchain. It leads us to a future where there are no paper registries. You don't have to go to the company's house to register a company. You can basically do so via an automatic approach that's decentralized, that then allows you to maintain and control that organization, whether that be a company, a foundation. Imagine a fund where everything that goes in the fund is basically voted on by the shareholders through the smart contract by use of a token. That's basically what a DAO is. So there you go. Kevin Explains Crypto. So I'm going to see what we have anything quickly here more on Reddit. Some of these things we've kind of already talked about. Somebody asked about new users and active traders. Again, I don't. You would think this is something I'd be checking, but to be honest, guys, we're more. And I hate to say this because it's like a CZ thing that he says on Twitter all the time, but we're more about building right now than numbers, because that's the most important aspect of the business at this point. So it's not something that I hover over. I'm more concerned about getting us to the next level. But I promise you, at some point here, I'm going to have a look. Tag me in Telegram. Somebody asked me if there's still exponential growth. There's still growth in terms of new users. Exponential growth tends to happen around the release of new services, but there's still growth. When you talk about volumes, yeah, volumes can be finicky, but the same volume fluctuations you are going to see even at larger exchanges. The difference is that the numbers are so large. When you see 1.2 billion one day and 855 million the next, it kind of gets overlooked. But there's definitely big fluctuations. When you bring on, when you're wash trading, you can definitely float out those. But you saw the news on South Korea, 200 exchanges going bankrupt. I guarantee you every one of those exchanges on CoinMarketCap has lots of volume. I wonder if Jess and Son and Kevin would get along. TRX has announcements of an announcement we have soon. I don't know. Maybe we would. I wish you would have invited me to that Buffett, and it never happened, but that would have been interesting. Something isn't right with the trade platform. XCM drops and error messages pop up, server error. It's definitely not made so people can't avoid cheap coins or whatever was posted there. There's definitely nothing manipulative about it. I would say, look, just get in touch with our support. They'll get in touch with development, and they'll make sure it's solved, and they'll give you the specific reason why it happened, whether it was some type of local issue, whether it wasn't a local issue. They'll get it solved. Hey, Kevin, stop promising things you can't fulfill. This is Carlos Matos Balls. Who will believe the whole sandbox story if you haven't even delivered the products listed on the homepage? Carlos, and don't take this personally, my friend, but I don't give a shit if you personally believe the sandbox. Could care less. If you want to pay for a ticket down to Montenegro, I'll tell you when we're there next. You can sit outside, because I wouldn't let you into the meeting, because why would I do that? But you can sit outside while the big boys talk about business, and then we can debrief you with like a cup of juice or a juice box afterward. So you're invited. Can you explain the difference of market making and wash trading? I think I did this a little bit already, but wash trading essentially is when you trade back and forth with zero fees and zero commission to two accounts owned by the same entity with the explicit purpose of moving price in one direction. That's basically what wash trading is. But I just want to get back to Carlos balls here. So on the homepage, so what haven't we delivered on the homepage? And by the way, have you made note of what we delivered on the homepage? Have you made a ratio or figured out if we delivered more than we haven't yet delivered? Yet delivered would be the focal point there. Anyway, but yeah, Carlos, seriously, if you want to come down to Montenegro, buy yourself a ticket, and you can sit outside while the adults in the room have a conversation, and then you'll see at least kind of like almost firsthand of what's going on. And not all things are based on development, guy. There's lots of things that go on in a company. But anyway, you probably already know that, because you're probably like some Fortune 500 CEO and just come here to troll a bit. So have a great weekend, by the way. I thought it was the reenactment of the hunting. Okay. Also, how is the new website coming along? New website's coming along. I'm actually working on some of the content. Lucky me. So almost finished most of the content, a little more content to go, and then it'll go through some additional tweaks on the image and development side, and then we'll start pushing it through to get it actually coded. So it's moving along. You given odds on Digitech's failed release date of public testnet on the 30th of November? Nope. What was the famous Digitech thing when he's like, or something like that? I don't remember. Anyway, I'm sure there's going to be a screen cap of that now with me and Digitech side by side somewhere on the internet. All right, guys. It's been an hour. It's been real. Appreciate everybody for stopping by. Like always, thank you for the questions. I appreciate it. Even Carlos Balls, thank you for taking the time to submit that awesome question. Appreciate that. And look, guys, have a good weekend. Spend time with friends and family. Don't look at crypto prices. Buy some XCM. You know the drill. See you guys next week. I think over the next 2 to 3 weeks here, a lot of those soons will be converted into nows. So no nows today, but nows are coming. And the nows are going to come in full force at some point. So thanks, guys. As always, yep, Oliver, I took screen cap, so waiting for that one. Maybe I should do another one, because I think that one came out kind of cheesy. But anyway, guys, all right, see you guys soon. Tag me in Telegram. See you there over the weekend. If you want to catch me on Blocks Live, I'll be there in 30 minutes. Topics today aren't bad. So yeah, support over there if you want. And see you guys. Cheers.